yet another time with Tuto IO in Fantastic Tuto, and in today's tutorial, it happens to be the continuation of the course PCR274, and just like we know how things have been done, it's going to be an interactive one. So if you're new to the stream, you want to ensure to subscribe to the channel. You want to ensure to use the comment section. Let us know where you are streaming from. And perhaps if you haven't joined the private class, you want to, all right, do well to join the private class and reach out to us through our official website, which is www.tutorio.net, where you get to find the WhatsApp button in the top right hand corner. You use the WhatsApp button to send us a direct message, and we'll be happy to have you on board. I can see the comment section buzzing already. Good evening, Miss Dami. It's great to have you on board. Mr. Emmy, it's great to have you on board. I also have Miss also says hi. It's great to have you all on board. So without further ado, just like I said, if you haven't joined the private class yet, all you need to do is to reach out to us on our official website, which is www.tutorio.net. You find the WhatsApp button in the top right hand corner. Use that to send us a direct message. The conceptual discourse of the post-conflict communities. Now, we'll talk about the post-conflict communities. Post-conflict communities. Now, we have three, all right, different words to make up these, all right, write up, to make up this text. The post, we have conflict and communities. Now, we want to know the meaning of each word and as to how they both relate to each other, all right? Speaking of posts, all right, when we say post, we are talking about, all right, it's another word for after. Okay, when we say post, it is another word for after. All right, it's another word for after. Okay, now when we say post, we're talking about after. All right, and this is a word which is opposite. The antony of this word is pre. So you have pre as before and post as after. Now, when we talk about conflict, we already know what conflict is, all right? This is the Department of Peace and Conflict Resolution Studies. By now, the term conflict is not new to us. When we say conflict, it's a medium of disagreement, a state, an event of disagreement, all right? Then we'll talk about communities. We're going to be taking a proper definition of this as we go into the course material. Now, when we talk about community, all right, we are talking about a group of people, all right. A community is not just a space, it's not just a territory, but what makes a community are the occupants of that space, which are unique, all right, which are different. They have something in common, something that set them aside, and they are being referred to as a community. Now, let's talk about the term post-conflict community. Now, in this context, we are referring to a community that has been ravaged by violent conflict. Now, just like I usually say, this is a disclaimer. All we do on this channel is basically to educate, nothing more, nothing less. All right? We do not instigate, encourage, or support conflict or violence. So when you come across us using certain words, please know that the purpose of usage of such word is basically to educate. Now, when I talk about post-conflict community, we are talking about a community that has experienced, all right, violent conflicts. We are talking about a community that has been ravaged, that has been eaten up, a community that has witnessed a violent conflict. All right, so we are simply talking about a community that has experienced conflict. It's not a community that will experience or a community that's currently experiencing. But we're talking about a community that has, all right? They have now represent post that has experienced a violent conflict, all right? A community that has been ravaged by a violent, okay, violent conflicts. Then we're talking about the post-conflict communities, but in this case, not just one community, but several communities in this case. Okay, now a war distinguishes, all right, a war distinguished from conflict based on number of casualty recorded. Now, if care is not taken, all right, this simple conflict between this community can become a large scale war. And what is used in identifying a war from a conflict, all right? Conflict does not record high number or high level of casualty. But when we talk about war, you are talking about high level. The number of casualty recorded is nothing compared to a conflict. All right? And if care is not taken, war is as a result of unattended, all right, conflict. Conflict that started as a spark became a small fire, but because care is not taken, or this small fire is not quickly quenched or extinguished, it becomes a wildfire. And that wildfire will definitely lead to series of destruction. All right. So this is what we are being told in the course material. Now let's take a step further as we go through this together real quickly. Now, just like I said, we are going to be taking some definition on the term community. Now, simply put, a community can be described as a just group, all right? A group residing in territorial defined region. So for a community to be referred to as a community, there must be people, all right? These must be a group of people residing in a particular territory within a particular region. All right? So we have that as that. Now, this community has a bond, which is called a culture. All right? The community has a bond, which is referred to as a culture. And when we say a culture, all right, culture should be a serious concern. All right? Cultural issues should be a serious concern to anyone involved in conflict transformation, especially in a post-conflict community. All right? Whether the conflict is mono, whether the culture is mono or multi. So now, we talk about post-conflict community. All right? So therefore, from there we talk about war. So now that the conflict has happened, then the strategy for conflict transformation, when we talk about conflict transformation, we are talking about an event that happens, that is initiated after a conflict has taken place. And this event is taken for the purpose of restoring law and order gradually. That's why it's called a transformation. Transformation is not instant, it takes time. All right. So this kind of transformation, you as a mediator of such transformation, you must put into cognizance that bond called culture. All right? So that bond called culture must be put into cognizance, all right, when involved in conflict transformation, most especially in a community that has experienced conflict, whether on a large scale or not. Whether when we say monoculture now, it's just one culture, all right? Or when we say multiple culture, irrespective of that, culture must be put into cognizance. Now, it says here, speaking of culture, the main function of culture is that it helps in the identifying of the group with implication for the generation of what we refer to as otherness or them. All right? Culture encompasses the meaning, okay? Inside culture, we have buried the meaning, conventions, presuppositions that is, all right, the grammar that governs the creation and the use of symbols and signs. Holistically, culture of a group speaks about the group. It is the reason for the living. With the culture, you can tell this is this group. All right. If you see a Yoruba person or an Igbo person or an Hausa person exhibiting his or her culture, you can tell that this person is from this tribe. All right. So it is very important, as we have been told here, that it encompasses the meaning, the conventions and presuppositions that governs the usage of symbols and signs. It can be summed up as common sense, local knowledge, underpinning a group conception of reality. All right, so we have culture as underpinning a group's, all right, conception, underpinning a group's conception of reality. The conception of reality in Britain might not hold water in France. Why? Because these are different groups with different culture. Okay? The underpinning of a group conception of reality in Germany might not hold water back here in Abuja. Why? Because we have an understanding of different realities. So it's very important when mediating in a post-conflict community, the bound called the culture must be looked into properly. With this, the transformation process will or can be effective. Now, according to Albert in 2001, Albert gave different meanings of culture as thought by observation, all right, norms, espoused value, moral philosophy, and habit of thinking. Now, a whole lot. Let's just take one, all right, which is the habit of thinking. According to Albert, Albert is of the opinion that when we talk about the habit of thinking, we have mental modes, all right, linguistic paradigms, talking about the cognitive frame that guides the way this group thinks, all right, their language, all right, and how they socialize, all right. It is all encapsulated in their cognitive, all right, frame. I want to talk about cognitive frame. It has to do with your thinking capacity. Okay, so let's take note of that. Now, as we have talked about culture, there's also one very important thing we need to consider, speaking of the post-conflict community, is language. All right? Just like we all know, communication is very important in every conflict. All right? Communication is one of the determinants in every conflict. Let's even put aside clash of interests. All right? Let's put aside clash of goals. When communication has been breached, conflict is around the corner. Let's even put aside culture. When communication, if we cannot understand each other, there is a problem. And we can relate it to what happened in the Tower of Babel. When they could not communicate with each other, there was discord. They were destabilized, disoriented. So language is beyond just communicating. All right. And just like we know that communication is beyond, all right, being verbal or spoken words. Communication goes beyond spoken words. Just like what we have here, according to Iwara in 2006, Iwara is of the opinion that from the linguistic point of view, all right, language is seen as a unified system of symbols. All right, a unified system of symbols. These symbols are not just letters or alphabet. All right, everything that is encapsulated in symbol, according to Iwara, it is referred to as the unified system of symbols conventionally agreed among a particular group. Just, have you ever asked yourself this question? Why does this symbol represent alphabet C? Why can't it represent alphabet W? This is what you have been programmed to understand. You have been programmed to agree, to identify. Whenever you see this alphabet, this symbol identifies as letter C. So by this reason, everyone who speaks, understands English, all right, can identify with this symbol as alphabet C. This is because you are following, you have been programmed, you have been taught to identify, all right, these alphabets as what you have been told to identify it as. So you are following that rule of a unified system. So it's a system. And when you go out of the system, you see that your teacher will fail you. Your teacher will mark you wrong. Because we have been programmed that this should be identified as this. In a society, now you know you can get to a place and this alphabet you understand as C could mean something else in another person's language or in a society. Why does it identify it as C? So anything you identify, all right, as what it is, as is in a system, and it has been conventionally agreed, whether it is in Lagos, Abuja, anywhere, it has been conventionally agreed, Britain, US, anywhere, that English is being spoken as a language, it has been conventionally agreed, all right, among a particular group of people, all right, to permit a sharing of meaning. So the meaning of this alphabet is C. And with this, you can form a word as cats. All right. So language is also a very important factor. Please take note of that. There are also several definitions here, but time will not permit us to touch on everything. And this is why I keep saying, if you haven't joined the private class, not just the classes, we help you with a whole lot of resource, all just to get you set up for the exams. All right. So if you want to join the private class today, or you want to get resource, all right, through our official website, you can just reach out to us on www.tutorio.net. Find the WhatsApp button in the top right-hand corner. Use that as a direct message, and we'll be happy to have you on board and walk you through things properly. So we have that as that. Okay. So very quickly, let's touch the types of post-conflict communities in Nigeria. We know what post-conflict communities are. So what are the types of these communities in Nigeria? We are going to be talking about just two. There are four of them. The first type of post-conflict communities are those communities desolate by militaristic conflicts. All right, so let's just take something down real quickly. We have network on our site today. Yesterday was something else. So it was so unstable yesterday. So we have types of post-conflict communities. So to start with, just two, I'll call it a wrap for tonight. All right. The first is those communities desolated by militaristic conflict. Let's just use military conflicts. Now, when we say militaristic conflicts, all right, we are talking about conflict that was as a result of military intervention. All right. So now it says here the understand of the states, such as there some states are being listed here. Okay. Now, such community must have a firm grasp of the issues that led to the conflict and must be able to correctly guide people's perception of the states. Now, this will guide the conflict transformation team in knowing how to design the program. Now, what are we talking about here? These are conflicts that a community has experienced, and this conflict was as a result of military intervention. It could be clash or a coup, all right, within the military system, or a clash between the military, all right, and the civilians, all right, irrespective of what case the matter could be. The fact that conflict, uniformed men happen to partake in this conflict against, all right, the civilians, all right, or within themselves, which affects, in turn, has a negative effect on the civilian, then this community falls under this, all right, aspect. And in so doing, for the transformation process of such community, there needs to be a proper understanding of why the military even ever got involved. All right, there's a proper understanding, then the transformation process can be properly approached. And secondly, we also have the second types are those laid prostrate and desolate by a combination of state military intervention and self-sustaining structure of violence in such community. All right. In a community, definitely there will be groups that feels like, okay, we are not satisfied with what the government is saying or what the government is doing. So therefore, we want to take the law into our hands. So such groups clashing directly, all right, with the military. All right, so we can say military versus, according to the word used here, self-sustaining structure. All right, so let's just use self-sustaining groups. All right, just have to hold the government to ransom till they give us what we demand. All right, and we know such groups exist in all countries. All right, we have the general term used for such groups could be militants, could be terrorists. All right, they are not just out there for fancy sake. They have their demands, and they will not stop until they beg the government to meet their demands. So we're going to call it a wrap here for today. All right. So in our next class, we're going to be taking up from conflict handling styles. Now that we know that, okay, certain conflicts like this can come up, certain conflicts like this can be. So we're going to be taking our bearing from in the next class. the conflict handling style. Thank you very much, everyone. I believe you all have been able to learn something tonight. Please let's keep our notes up to date, and I look forward to seeing you all in subsequent tutorials. You have a wonderful night rest, and bye for now.